Hangout.
And we're live. All right. I don't have my lower third.
Did you start Audacity?
No, not yet. We haven't started recording yet. Just recording the.
We have another 25 minutes, and then we'll actually start recording.
All right. We have to wait until everybody gets their lower third ready. All right. All right. Are we ready? Everybody good?
Are we all recording it? Or just...
No, not recording. Nobody's recording yet. Everybody's cursor
No,
is
do we
over
have
the
to all
recording
record
button. Yeah.
Chris, are you there? You good?
Yep.
All right. You've been very quiet tonight.
All right. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, go, and then hit record, all right? 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, and welcome to the Static Void Podcast. I'm Jess Chadwick.
I'm Todd Snyder.
And I'm Chris Gomez.
And we are your hosts. We're recording this on the evening of January 11th. No, we're not. 2016. Son of a bitch. All right, stop.
Stop.
Copy and paste. No, I'm not going to go back and edit that.
File new.
No, you don't have to file new. Just kill the track.
No, that's right. I will
Create a
do
new
file
one.
new. All right. Ready again? It's
All right.
January
All right.
31st.
Take 2. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, and welcome to the Static Void Podcast. I'm Jess Chadwick.
I'm Todd Snyder.
And I'm Chris Gomez.
And we are your hosts. We're recording this on the evening of January 31st, 2016, and tonight we've got a couple of friends joining us, Aaron Marisi and Rishi Panda. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Woo. We've invited them here tonight to talk about what we're all eager to learn about in 2016. So, Rishi, why don't you kick us off? What topics are on your list? What are you eager to learn about?
This year, or not for the year, for the moment, I'm going to learn about React and the whole ecosystem surrounding it. That means like, ECMAScript 6, 7, Webpack, Babel, anything else that surrounds it, like Flux, Relay, GraphQL, the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, nice. How are you planning on getting started with that? What resources are you going to use?
Well, we have a project that's built using those things. So it's primarily online, like there are a lot of tutorials and videos. I mean, there's a lot of stuff online. It's basically, I'm just trying to absorb everything that I find.
So maybe just for the listener, like React, you could say, I mean, if you're familiar with like Angular, right? If people are pretty familiar with, say, Angular or maybe Ember, React is Facebook's.
Yeah, it's Facebook's way of doing single-page applications primarily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not just single-page applications, but yeah, it's mainly catered towards doing SPAs.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of Angular for the past couple of years. I think we've talked about that a little bit on the show. And what the my mic is not recording. I just realized this. I don't know what's going on here.
Mine is, if you were wondering.
Jesus Christ.
I can see the little waves as I talk. So
I know. I just noticed this. All right, let's kill it. Let's start one more time. Take 3. Sorry. It's awesome that it's just me that's screwing this up.
Yeah, I guess.
It works. It's pretty good.
Actually, need a little more pizzazz this time, okay?
We gotta get more excited about React.
That
actually, like, well, I have to learn React. Sons of
yeah, I'm gonna learn some React.
It's actually an interesting point that we should probably describe what we're learning because they may be somewhat cutting edge.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Yeah, that was great, you loser.
No.
So, Jess, do you have a mic that records? Let's establish this before we record.
Yes. No, I got while I was doing the demo, and I said, "Hey, you want to select your mic?" I changed my fucking mic. What happened? Yeah. Because I'm a teacher, not a doer.
Yes.
All right. The other thing that I wanted to tell you guys is don't worry about it. If you like screw up or whatever, don't get flustered or anything. If you like really screw up, then just like start over, right? And then just go back and I'll just cut the whole thing out. Or, even if you just get flustered a little bit, I'll go and just clean it up or whatever. So just be natural, right?
But if Jess messes up, we have to start the whole podcast over.
Even we're 45 minutes in.
Listen, not recording a whole track of audio is a problem. All right.
Just gonna edit it. Why is mine at 0?
Okay.
Boy, I didn't learn anything.
All right. Ready?
Jess is gonna learn how to record.
This year I want to learn how to run a podcast recording session.
How'd you know? That is going to be mine. All right. 3, 2. Are we all ready?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Hello, and welcome to the Static Void Podcast. I'm Jess Chadwick,
I'm Todd Slater.
And I'm Chris Gomez.
and we are your hosts. We're recording this on the evening of January 31st, 2016, and tonight we've got a couple of friends joining us, Aaron Marisi and Rishi Panda. We've invited them here tonight to talk about what we're all eager to learn about in 2016. Hey Aaron. Hey Rishi, how's it going?
Hey guys.
Yeah, welcome.
So Rishi, what's top on your list? What are you looking to look into this year?
Well, this year I'm looking forward to learn React and the whole ecosystem that surrounds it, like ECMAScript 6, 7, Webpack, Babel, Relay, GraphQL, Flux, you name it. There's a lot of stuff going around with React. You just have so much to learn about it.
Yeah, nice. I think that's pretty high on a lot of people's list. But for those of you, those of us who don't know about it or haven't used it, you want to kind of explain what that is, or what you've learned about it so far, or what you plan on using it for?
Yeah, so we have a project that's built on top of it, and React is basically Facebook's MVC framework. They use React to build a lot of stuff at Facebook. It's meant to be their answer to Angular to build like single-page applications.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of interesting technologies and design principles that React brings. It's kind of an opinionated framework. So React is the front-end part of it. It's just the view part of it. Relay is something that addresses both the backend and the state management on the front end.
Relay, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so it's kind of like Flux, but where Flux is a one-way communication, Relay is a two-way communication.
Flux. Okay, yeah. So that's another thing that I think probably a lot of people haven't really heard about. You want to talk about that? Are you using Flux already?
No, we are not using Flux. I think we probably won't use Flux.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is still early in the stage. We haven't settled on anything yet. But we have been using GraphQL. We've been building APIs on top of GraphQL. So that's their Graph query language. It's kind of their how do I say this? I mean, React doesn't like REST APIs. They think REST APIs are hard to maintain. They're broken, and
Sounds like something I would say.
so they are big advocates on GraphQL. So it's a different query language. It's not similar to SQL. It's not similar to REST API. And it's kind of a bit of both.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way of querying for data and returning something to the caller. On the surface, it looks promising. I would have more updates probably later in the year, but
You know, I also heard you mention Babel and ES6 or ECMAScript 2015, depending on which label you want to use. Now, do a lot of React developers are they embracing ES6, ECMAScript 6, the new JavaScript for server-side work? Is that pretty common?
Yeah, most of the authors that I have seen, they are using ES6 and EX7 because it just makes things so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And also goes with the fact that like people have been using TypeScript and what was the other one that lets you do this kind of?
Well, like you had mentioned Babel, so I guess
that's Clojure and Dart and all those things that let you do like proper OOPS style programming in JavaScript.
Yeah.
So ECMAScript 6 and 7 brings a lot of that to the table. ES7 brings async await.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big biggie.
So Babel is a transpiler, right, that allows you to use ES6 today. And I think maybe, is it true that you could even use ES7 features?
Yeah.
And then it transpiles them back down to what the browser will understand if you're writing
ES5
code.
ECMAScript. Yeah. The
Yeah.
normal JavaScript.
Yeah, nice. And did you say? I'm not sure you actually said this, but are you using TypeScript now, or were you looking into that, or?
No, we're not, because you don't need to use TypeScript.
Yeah, Jess.
ES6 and 7 kind of gives
Oh,
you
I
that
beg to
feature.
differ.
I mean, you can still use TypeScript, but that's unnecessary. If you
Yeah,
want.
okay. You mean it's unnecessary to kind of buy into this whole ecosystem and write productively?
Yeah. No. Not that.
Well-
I mean, TypeScript lets you do what ES6 and ES7 bring to the table natively.
Yeah,
Along with
right.
types. You don't get types in 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to get started with React, or how did you approach getting started with React? Did you just download the SDK? Is there a certain thing that you found that would be easier if someone wants to get started?
Well, it's there's lots and lots of material out there, which is good and can be bad, because it can be overwhelming at first. But Facebook's own site is a pretty good place to start. They have I don't have the link handy, but it's React.js by
Yeah, we'll
Facebook.
put the link in the show notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they have all sorts of tutorials, and I think they have videos also talking a lot about a lot of the features and how you can do stuff with React. So there's a lot of good documentation out there that you can.
So what if you're building a traditional application that has like charts and grids and things like that? Do you still use jQuery? Does React have their own UI framework to work with?
So that's interesting, because you know, you can still use jQuery if you want to, but a lot of that becomes unnecessary with React, because with React you don't handle the DOM manipulation at all.
Right.
Or, I mean, you can probably, like in rare and exceptional cases, you might want to do DOM manipulation, but that's totally against the philosophy of React. So if that's thrown out, then there is very little reason to use jQuery as such.
Yeah.
But what about, like I said, like a UI, like high-end UI type stuff, like you want a chart or a grid? Does the React framework come with those built in, or is there like open source third-party things you can tap into?
Yeah, there's a lot of community support around this. There are a lot of open source plugins and libraries that you can use. I don't know about charting libraries, but I know there are a lot of grid options available there. And I'm currently actually working on a grid plugin using React, the responsive grid built using React.
Yeah, nice. And part of React, I don't think you mentioned it earlier, is actually the JSX syntax, right? Where you can actually write HTML right there in your JavaScript, basically.
Yeah, so they have this JSX syntax, which looks like XML, but it's not really XML. And
Yeah.
if you
Like
write
JavaScript XML literals, right?
yeah, it's
Oh
more
no!
like,
Yeah.
You're mixing the chocolate with the peanut butter.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
would
mean,
you compare it to
I
a
was-
view engine, JSX? Would that be comparable? Just, I mean, maybe not an exact port of maybe like Razor for an MVC developer, where it's what you're working on in your view.
yeah, they have React MVC, which lets you use React within MVC applications.
Well, I think React is the view engine, right? I mean, JSX is just the way to.
Well, I'm just trying to think of how to describe JSX.
So, yeah, so
folks
I
who-
mean, it's React is the view engine, and the one thing that it brings to the table that Razor or the other view engine doesn't have is isomorphism or universal apps.
And what is that?
Not the Microsoft universal apps, but isomorphic apps are the term that's being used in this JavaScript world as applications that can run both on the server and the client. So you have the ability to render the HTML on the server as you would do it on the client. And using React, you write. I mean, this is something that if you remember, we talked about like a couple of years back. You know, having a Vue engine that can you write once your templates, and then you can use both on server and on client.
Yep.
And React brings that to the table. So using React, you can render your HTML on the server, serve that to the browser straight, or you can send it to the browser and have the JavaScript on the browser parse it out and turn it into HTML.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
Right. Which is great if like the browser has JavaScript off, or maybe the search spiders have come around. I
That's a good
wonder,
point.
you know, as us developers, like we probably don't turn off JavaScript, but it makes me wonder how many folks out there are regularly trying to use the web and they run into sites, and maybe whether because they're using
All
an old
broken.
browser or because they're using a plugin that's blocking things, and we developers are thinking, well, doesn't everything just work? Like, why would you shut off JavaScript? But maybe people do. I don't know. That's what analytics are for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which won't work if JavaScript is turned off.
I mean,
So
it's
Aaron,
definitely something you got to keep in mind. Go ahead.
so Aaron, what are you looking to learn in 2016?
2016 is a continuation of 2015 for me. I'm riding the Angular train, and
Choo 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 choo.
for me, Angular is not something I use at work, so it's it's one of those things that I'm trying to learn off hours, so obviously Angular's going through a big transformation, going from Angular 1 to Angular 2, and so I'm still looking. I still think Angular 1x is still valuable to know, especially I think there's going to be a lot of migration scenarios going on for years to come from Angular 1 to Angular 2. So there's still a lot I have to learn there. I've done a lot of the Hello World stuff. I've done a lot with tooling, actually, and that's where I've been seeing a lot of the value. Even though I don't do Angular during the day, the stuff that I've been learning about ECMAScript, 2015 modules, for instance, that kind of stuff totally applies. And all the work with the node tooling and the preprocessors and stuff like that. All that stuff gives me material to think of during my day job, even if we whether or not we adopt Angular at all.
Yep.
So that whole ecosystem I just find really valuable. And so I continue. Angular 2 is coming out. They have the beta, so I really like some of the stuff I've seen so far. It seems a lot more stripped down from it was a lot more configuration before, and it seems to be a lot more stripped down from that. And so I'll be looking at both and filling in. I think going from Hello World to those kind of application scenarios, trying to get something that's more of a sample application going for me to get all the pieces working together. Because I think you can find a video about using TypeScript, for instance, and you can find a video about using Angular. And you can find a video about using, System.js. But then how do you put that stuff together to create a workflow and all that kind of stuff? So that's where I'm finding a lot of interesting stuff and finding the limits there. So that, in a nutshell, that's it's Angular for me for the most part going forward into 2016.
Yeah, awesome. And you've got a blog too, where you're kind of doing all this out in the open, right?
Yeah, I've been trying to document. It helps me stay accountable and it helps me to really make sure that I'm learning things. So at AngularFirst.com, I try and blog the stuff that I've been learning, and it's been fun. It's been great to hear the feedback from people too. One of the posts was, I keep getting almost every week someone saying it helped them out. So it's kind of really
That's awesome. Great.
Become the expert.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
So is Angular 2 coming out this year?
What's that?
Do we know if Angular 2 is coming out this year?
They never. We weren't even sure the beta was coming out until they said, "Hey, the
It's
beta's
open
out."
source. Is it ever really out?
Yeah.
I'm
It
just
just
curious.
gets pushed.
I think it's
Curious if they call it production ready this year. I don't know.
yeah.
There is some stuff about
As
the
if they
beta.
didn't.
I mentioned that. So
What's that, Todd?
the beta talked about it. They were fine with people trying to use it in production applications, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've been
I've
playing.
had mixed feelings getting to work with IE still, so it doesn't. Not everything worked in IE and Edge. We're great in Chrome. Express.
The beta release was big for me because it was finally the docs were the biggest difference for me. The
Yes.
docs were finally usable, right? And so you could actually learn how to do it. Because I would invest, dozens of hours and search blog posts, most of which were about the alpha release that was 3 months old, and it was just incredibly painful. And so it just became a lot less painful to follow it now with the beta release. So
Yeah.
what are you looking? Are you looking, Aaron, to be using it with the beta? Like, are you going to wait for the full
I think now that
2.0
it's
release?
beta, no, I was kind of holding off. I looked at some of the Hello World stuff. Like I did their Hello World thing,
Yeah.
and I liked their use of modules specifically. I thought that was really nice how they just used the standards instead of having their own dependency injection system. But that was about as far as I got, and I was kind of holding off. I have enough Angular 1 stuff to keep me busy as well. And so what I'm thinking I'll probably do, I'll do an application in Angular. I might get brave. I might do Angular 1 and ASP.NET 4.5, what I'm using now, and then try and migrate that to Angular 2 with ASP.NET Core, just to get, really give myself a headache.
Well, no,
Yeah.
you
Get as
mentioned
much
that.
cutting edge as possible.
That's
Yeah.
a real world scenario that a lot of people have
Yeah.
adopted Angular 1, and migrating is not going to be simply recompile. It's going to rethink things.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about the documentation, and I spent maybe an hour or so kind of looking through it, is I felt like it was very approachable. One of the big things I always had a problem with Angular 1 is if you went to the website, they had some great documentation, but no how to get started.
Yeah.
You actually had to spend a lot of time just understanding all the moving pieces,
Mhm.
where now it seems like they understand that you have this community of people here that you kind of have to guide them down the right path
Mhm.
instead of just having like an API guide. That's what I felt like the Angular 1 stuff was for a long time, was more of here how X does something, not, okay, that's X, but how do I get to A, B, and C before I get to X? So I really feel like what's on the new documentation is much better. I like the idea that they're really pushing the web component model.
Yep.
I really think that is a model that I think is definitely the future.
Well, and that's the model you can do in Angular 1 today, right? That's the biggest thing, is you don't have to wait for Angular 2 to apply that model, that design pattern. You can do that in your Angular 1 apps,
Yeah.
and that's what I've been encouraging my team to do. And then that just kind of makes it a little that much easier, right? A little bit easier to migrate over. I'm not going to say it just makes it very
And I do like the idea that they're sticking to similar terminology. Originally, when the alpha came out, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
they were going to use directives. Now they're still kind of pushing that same word. And it's a different kind of approach how you do it, but just the fact you're calling the things the same thing, I think would make it easier for people to relate. The only concern I have is Google also has a thing called Polymer, which also does web components. It's very confusing exactly, like, they're similar, but are they going to be compatible? Are they two different things? So there definitely, I think, that definitely seems to be a big future coming for Angular 2, and definitely something people want to kind of, even if they're like Aaron, not using it in their day job, at least try to learn and get a grasp, because whether it's going to be Angular or React or whatever framework's coming, in more and more apps, you're going to have to use something. You're not going to just start with basic HTML and JavaScript.
Yeah, that's my number one thing. That's my top thing that I'm looking to learn in 2016 is just I'm not interested in learning about Polymer, because to me that's just another framework, right? That's just another dependency that
It's
I have.
a jQuery UI type of thing.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out, when web components, the spec and the implementation is going to be like available and ready to use, and how realistic it is to use that, and how the web component spec and the web components API kind of fits in with that modular approach to development, right? So if I'm taking a modular approach with Angular, can I take an Angular app, an Angular module, an Angular component, and combine it with a React component, right? Because I'm in the enterprise world, and so can I have one team writing Angular and another team writing React, and they're doing so in a componentized pattern, a design approach, an architecture, and then kind of do some stitching, some plumbing in between, kind of what what web components is going for, right? That's the whole point of the web component spec. And I don't think the web component spec, even when it is fully implemented, is going to support this. But conceptually, right, using that concept and maybe writing a little bit of custom code to pipe it together and connect them together, but be able to kind of run them in the same DOM. And so you are kind of back to the core. These are DOM components, and DOM and JavaScript, right? And somehow they kind of communicate, and they're both built on their own frameworks, but they both live together and they both interact together. That's the top thing that I'm kind of looking into and figuring out today for my enterprise, right? I'm kind of trying to solve that issue.
I'm doing something similar because I still make heavy use of jQuery components. So in the Angular 1.0 days, sometimes we had to jump through quite a few hoops to make things work. Really going to be trying to figure out if it needs to have that same level of interoperability, or because the way the web components work, there seems to be a much cleaner way to make that interface work between the two of them, the
Yeah.
two different worlds. So I think even with React, you'd have that same thing. You might have to build an Angular directive or something that sort of
Yeah.
intercepts calls back and forth and kind of transforms things into the right pieces.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for something even higher up than that, right? It's kind of lower. It's underneath all of those frameworks, and it's not specific to any framework, right? It just kind of ties them all together. But this is all kind of pie in the sky stuff that I'm just trying to figure
No, I mean,
out.
that's a legitimate question people have to ask themselves. They
Yeah.
might be jumping around from project to project, or like your Sheded, have different components written by different people. All right, even think about it from an open source third party thing. You may have a component you want to use. Being able to understand how to interface it with the framework, your core framework you're using, is very important.
Yeah. Well, and the obvious downside is that in the example I gave, you're doing Angular and you're doing React, and you have to download those two relatively huge frameworks, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's the obvious downside, but I'm operating in an environment where that downside is something that we will probably accept in order to get that reusability of, this development team is able to use the framework that they're really productive in, and then this other team is able to use theirs, right? And then we can all just kind of bring them together transparently, or as transparently as possible. But going back to your point about the Angular documentation, the Angular 2 documentation, I couldn't agree more. And my favorite part is the part that they actually teach you TypeScript while you're going through the tutorial.
it's a choice.
They sneak that in there.
6 or 7 too. There's a choice.
They say, here's how you create a directive, and by the way, this is a TypeScript directive. And
I feel like they've adopted it as their default.
Wait a minute, Microsoft invented it. We didn't invent it. Sorry.
I feel like they adopted it as the default language of choice for Angular 2, right?
I think it's going to push the popularity of TypeScript,
Yeah,
but I mean,
definitely hand in hand.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, people have made
about-
claims that's why TypeScript is going to be popular. I don't think that's it, but I definitely think it's going to contribute.
Well, you think Google's
It's
already
definitely going to
going
be
this way.
important.
Google was already going this way with AdScript, right? So they were developing the features they needed for Angular with AdScript.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
earlier in 2015, they decided, hey, the TypeScript team over at Microsoft is doing similar stuff.
Yeah.
We just combine our efforts. And I thought that was...
Which is, to me, huge. If we
That
ended
was
up having
awesome.
to have different languages from different vendors, it would have been a big nightmare.
Well, but AdScript was always meant to be a superset of TypeScript, which was a superset of ECMAScript. Supersets on supersets, but
Yeah.
I mean, TypeScript was always in the picture, even when AdScript was around.
Yeah, but if they had sort of went on their own, it would be easier for them to fork it off to something else. So
Yeah.
using that same universal language, I think, will definitely help the adoption.
Yeah. So, Chris, you've been a little quiet. What are you looking to do in 2016?
Well, the biggest problem I'm going to have is making sure I concentrate on one thing, because
Everybody's problem.
between what we do in our local user groups, talking a lot about web development, and then the Philly GameWorks game development group. But I will pick out one thing, and I think what I'd like to do is learn. The main topic is learn some new programming languages, and specifically functional programming languages. And so I think where have been starting is with F#, just because it allows me to use what I already know, .NET Framework, a lot of tools and libraries and scenarios specifically that I'm already familiar with, which could be, ASP.NET or anything else similar to that. Or you can even ease in and do a little bit of F# and combine it with an existing C# project. But I'm also thinking that I'd like to jump off the deep end, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way, and maybe even try using something like Elixir, and I'm just picking that one out to say, I kind of want to just do a small project, maybe build a web API with Elixir or something like that. I'm just really interested in the idea of functional programming over object-oriented programming. And I think a lot of it is because over the last couple years, I've seen object-oriented code bases really struggle. And look, this can happen to any code base, of course. It doesn't have to be it's not because there's a failure there. I just think that it's been really hard for developers to adopt the principles necessary. We have the principles. We have great teaching out there, the solid principles. We have design patterns, the book from the Gang of Four, favor composition over inheritance, and yet I find that teams really struggle to really follow those patterns. And when you're under the gun trying to get something done, you just sort of see
follow the
stuff.
OOP patterns, you mean?
Follow follow the good established patterns. You know, how many times do you run into a code base and say, this clearly is not a single responsibility? It just looks like people were in a hurry and you threw code made the code change here because you knew it solved the problem and you just moved on. You just, whatever.
So your reaction to that is just switch to functional and just throw it all
Well,
away?
no, there's other reasons too. And I think some of it is the world we're moving towards. It's like a multi-core world.
Yeah.
And I think even the cloud-based world, like microservice world. So one of the things that it's really good at is the idea of saying, you know, if you stay as purely functional as possible, you're not manipulating internal state, which is what object-oriented programming is really good at, and that's what it was created for.
Yeah.
But then where that can break down, and you know, I'm not attacking it. I'm just saying where it breaks down is saying, okay, well now I have an object and it's maintaining its own internal state. Is it thread safe? Do I need it to be thread safe? Well, maybe, especially if it's a web server, because modern web servers like IIS, the ASP.NET group, you know, woe be unto you if you start writing static classes
Yeah, you will be able
and maintain
Oh, yeah.
state
Oh, yeah.
in ASP.NET. And a lot of developers, I think, actually don't know that.
Yeah.
And then they wonder, well, you know, any two requests can come in, and
We
I mean,
said
really,
about
it's
that
just
in production last week.
yeah. And I've seen it, right? But you know, part of it is just, hey, if I'm picking something that I think I want to get into, I think a lot of it is there. I like the composability of functions. But I will admit that when I watch the masters work, I commonly say to myself, boy, how do they even break the problem down? Like, I'm still at that spot.
Yeah.
Is saying, boy, they broke it down into functions that they could compose. That's awesome. And I know the moment I turn off this video, I will not be able to do it myself yet. So, you know, it's...
So interesting. I think in many ways, Charlie lost my train of thought. C# itself, it feels like it's becoming more and more of a functional language. That is, every time the new release comes out, it seems like they're trying to adopt that more, the functional mindset. And someone who works in JavaScript, which is sort of a functional language in many ways, it's interesting. I definitely feel like that's a good thing to learn. My only concern is I've heard a lot of this stuff before. Learn aspect-oriented programming, learn functional programming, and they all kind of get popular and they sort of die off. But I think you hit it on the head. Is there going to be certain techniques and languages that are appropriate for certain things to solve certain problems, and as developers, we're going to have to kind of adapt to be a multi-language sort of persona. We can't just be a C# guy. We're going to have to.
JavaScript is a functional language, and you're right about how C# has adopted. I mean, we can pass functions around. It's not as clean or fun, you know, but and in JavaScript it's a little easier because you can simply just put a function in as any kind of parameter, pass it around in a first-class style. It's just that today, until we get to ECMAScript 2015, you start to see that crazy hierarchy of functions taking functions, and so the code starts to look a little messy.
Massive callbacks.
Yeah, but then, you know, we see in ECMAScript 2015, we're getting some Lambda syntax, and we're getting generators, which puts us on the road to async await, which, you know, we supposedly are getting in the next version.
Yeah.
And it looks like the syntax actually is going to be async await, and it makes me wonder if like the Microsoft folks on the committee have been steering it that way, you know. So
building alliances with Google and then taking over the JavaScript spec.
right. I mean,
all of a sudden JavaScript 2015 is TypeScript or 2018 is TypeScript. Wait a minute.
I mean, the early syntax that I've seen takes the generator concept that they built into ES 2015 and then says, okay, well now we have that building block, so let's put async await on top of it.
Yeah.
Which is going to look familiar to C# programmers. We're all going to look at that and say like, oh yeah, I know how to use that. No, but then of course it'll be subtly different, right? Because it's JavaScript and it'll trip us up like the this keyword does.
Yeah, yeah. I've been preparing a TypeScript course, and so I've been doing a lot of research just about the ES6 features, just so I can show them. And in a lot of kind of blog posts and articles and things, it'll literally say like this feature was taken from Python. You know, like if you are a Python developer, like it's the same syntax. and it's just amazing about how Python and TypeScript / JavaScript and C# and all of these are just kind of converging. I'm not going to at all say they're becoming the same language. They're clearly not, but like all of these features are just kind of widely available. I think it's great that like these great features are kind of floating to the top, and they're just kind of available wherever you are.
Well, it's because we don't yet have the capability to replace JavaScript, because who makes that move? Like if you're a browser vendor, how do you make that move? Then now you're on an island.
You introduced the Dart VM.
Well, I mean, these things have been tried, right?
I know.
And you're the evil vendor out on the island who's non-standard, so you have to drop it. You just have to give up and go back to JavaScript, right? That's the only one that it's like a standoff. It's the only one that they'll all agree, we'll point the guns at each other and say, we're all going to keep supporting JavaScript. We're not going to invent anything new and put it in the browser.
Yeah.
We're not going to create the plugin one more time. Until 2018, and then there's the TypeScript plugin for Edge. Whatever it is going to be.
That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for one of these frameworks or languages to become so widely adopted that finally someone will be brave. Let's say Google. They get brave and say, hey, you know what we did? We just put Angular 2 in the browser, so it's practically native, and now you're getting all of the power of Angular for free without the file download and the compiling and whatever. It's just free. I mean, I'm waiting for somebody to try taking that step. I don't think it'll be this year.
No, I can see, though, within 5 years, there's definitely going to be some layer of, I'll call it an app framework, sort of a .NET for web browsing that'll be more built into the browser, I think. You're going to start seeing more and more common services. Because, I mean, think about it. What's .NET? The library. We write C#, but at the end of the day, we're using common libraries. So having that common library, I think, it's going to come. It has to come. It needs to come for the platform to continue to mature, at least in my opinion.
Rishi, you want to hop back in?
I was just thinking, no, this is all interesting. I agree to what Chris has been saying about the design principles and all. I see a lot of that in the code bases that I look at too, and to the point that it's time that someone else bring in something other than JavaScript to these native platforms. My mind just drifted to the Node.js forking that's been going on. Like Node.js is already something that runs on a lot of hardware, but Microsoft recently forked it so that they can use their own JavaScript engine to run Node.js.
Right.
So that's interesting. I mean, if there is any company that's going to attempt doing something like that, I think it will be Microsoft before Google does something like that. And they've already burned themselves once with like VBScript and JScript and ActiveX.
ActiveX. ActiveX.
I think at its core, I like the idea of having Node run on multiple JavaScript engines. Like, just if you just take that abstract idea and say, well, it doesn't have to be married to V8. I think that helps us as developers, because it kind of kickstarts the competition of JavaScript engines themselves being iterated on and getting better. But I'm not trying to say that motivation is pure, or even if that's exactly what's happening, because I don't know that I fully get what's going on. But yes, part of it was fork Node, make it run on Chakra, and then I think they want to contribute back so that it supposedly you as the developer could say, well, I want it to run on Chakra for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a dream. I don't see it happening anytime soon, because they have diverged. They've gone on wide paths. So that's interesting. I think it's going to stay for that way for a long time to come.
So I don't know if you guys, just to bring it back around, Node is actually on my list for 2016 too. Have you guys done much with it, or is for me it's probably my goals with it are just to at least do some Hello World stuff, because I haven't really done much with Node as like server-side framework Node. I've done some of the command line stuff, but that's one of the I'd like to do some more stuff with that in 2016.
So for me, I've been thinking a lot about tooling stuff. I mean, a lot of the JavaScript tooling is built on top of Node, and I've actually been kind of interested in the idea of using Node sort of as a desktop framework. I mean, you have the code, Visual Code is written in Node, or written in TypeScript, which runs on Node. And there's some other tools I've used that are desktop type tools. Just very interesting in trying to figure out, is it a viable platform? Is that something that you could build a line of business type application, or something that would have good performance? Just to kind of figure out, is, as a developer, I mean, today I kind of have to live in both worlds. I have to live in the Microsoft XAML world and the web world. Is that avenue in the future going to be something viable? And in this case, I was thinking about certain kind of tools I could build. Just something I thought would make sense to try to, in order to learn Node, but then also kind of explore where it's going. Because that's we talk.
It seems to be cropping up everywhere too. I mean, I think if I read it correctly, Windows 10 IoT is using some version of Node as well. So it just seems like Node is just being used all over the place.
Yeah, it's ubiquitous, and I use it almost exclusively for my command line developer tools, right? So that's not using Node as creating Node applications, but just consuming Node tools, which is a completely different world on the same exact runtime, which I just find completely interesting. I just had a conversation with a coworker the other day saying, I want to teach people Node, and people being ASP.NET developers, .NET developers, and I said, why? I mean, we as an organization are not moving to Node anytime soon, right? And so, when we're talking about teaching coworkers and involving them, and I said you don't really need to know it in order to consume the tools, right? The tools is really just like install the Node executable and then npm install and learn npm, and and maybe learn how to update the package.json file to customize some scripts and stuff, right? But like you're not going to necessarily be writing tools. You just need to know how to create some JSON configuration to consume the tools.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice, if you had a problem with one of the tools because you're using all this open source stuff, that you knew Node well enough to be able to go in and submit a pull request or something?
Yeah.
There's always that aspect of it too, of learning.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? I mean, you actually can get away with not knowing Node, because it's very, very unlikely that you'll be submitting a pull request to the Node.js core library itself, because all it does, it's a bunch of C# libraries that abstract like file system and
C++ or C#.
Yeah, C++.
Yeah.
Sorry, C++.
Someday it will be C#. We have dreams to take over the world. Core.net. We mentioned it. Node running on Core.net.
Well, I think Aaron was talking about sending pull requests to the tools, right? Like
Yeah.
Right. So I was coming to that, right? So those tools are written in JavaScript.
Yeah.
So you don't need to know certain things about Node's internals if you want to make that pull request. I mean, you can still do it. You can still do it to a certain extent. I'm not saying that you never need to learn Node if you're working on those type of things. But I mean, it's not an absolute must, and it's not a necessary precursor to do anything on that ecosystem.
Yeah.
Just from my experience, I mean, I've been working on Node applications for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I think the scenario I ran into was I was using some plugin that was using like 50 other plugins that I didn't know.
That's a light plugin in Node, so it just uses 50 other plugins. So yeah, and then there are great tools and libraries. They just let you do stuff on top of this Node ecosystem. Like Commander.js is there that helps you write like console applications, command line applications, and for most part, they're pretty stable and they just work as advertised. So it's easy to get started. It's easy to get sucked in, but it's hard to get out.
Yeah. Nice.
It's the void. Once you're in, you're not escaping.
So Aaron, Rishi, are you guys looking at any other programming languages? Are you looking at any languages this year?
I was thinking about Go.
Yeah, that was on my list. Absolutely.
Yeah. I thought COBOL.net was on your list. We talked about it.
It was on my list for a couple of days, and then it quickly fell off. No, so I'm
COBOL.net, we're not JavaScript.
I'm interested,
I'll record
Rishi,
on that.
about why you're looking at Go, because I have my reasons too. I'm wondering if they might be the same.
It's not. You'll be disappointed at my reasons.
He Googled and Go came up. Oh, I've been learning this language.
That's one of it.
That's basically my reason. That's why I wanted to see, because it's a little bit more than that. It's just that I've been hearing it being referenced a lot, like a lot of blog posts, a lot of a lot of people that I respect just are kind of saying almost absent-mindedly, like, oh yeah, we did this in Go. It just seems like a lot of stuff is being done in Go, and I just want to see why. I want to see the allure, and I'm sure I'm probably going to give up because it looks like it's a C derivative, right? And I never really got deeply into C, so I think I might be out of my
So
element.
what is Go? It's by Google, right?
It's Google. Yeah.
What problem does it solve? Why would I want to use Go for a language?
Can you answer that, Rishi?
I was
I've
going
heard
to
of
say
it too, but I thought
you're one step ahead of me when you said like it's a derivative of C. Because other than looking at it coming up in blog posts and online and stuff, I haven't done anything much about it.
Yeah. Apparently, it's been around since 2007.
It's been around for a little while.
It's been around forever, but I've only been hearing about it a lot recently.
And
I mean, over the past couple of years.
They don't have good
created
SEO.
sort of
obviously.
replacement for it.
Well,
At least that was my understanding. That there was Go, and then Go sort of didn't get popular enough, and they kind of moved off to Dart, and then they got off Dart, and that seemed to be where
Go
things were
and
going.
Go and Dart are two different things. So Go is the server side. It's local, compiled, statically typed. It's got garbage collection and all that stuff. Dart is like a TypeScript. So I've got a special place in my heart for Dart here. So Dart is the other one that I'm going to learn, but only because I've already written it off, and I figured that's not fair. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to learn it, and then write it off.
So Go is close to the Clojure then.
Yeah.
Clojure a lot.
Yes, Clojure.
As a server-side language.
Yeah, that's the other one. But yeah, it's strictly server-side, compiled language. But I think so. I'm just kind of looking. I've only done a little bit of research, but it looks like it's for like mobile devices and stuff, or at least some of those are some of the target platforms. And apparently, it's got some good things for dealing with concurrency and things.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing that people look
Concurrency.
at Go is they say, hey, there's built-in concurrency primitives, and therefore it helps me like write my microservices easier. I
Well,
mean,
it's interesting because
I'm probably
that was
being totally unfair when I say that. So
no, but that was one of the top reasons that you listed for looking into functional, right? Just the functional languages in general.
And I mean, I only listed two, but certainly Go's been on my mind. And the other reason why is because I'm really interested in this platform as a service movement that's going on in the cloud vendors, whether that's Google App Engine or Amazon's or Azure. And one of the things you can do with Google App Engine is you write little bits of Go and you just give it to App Engine. Yeah. And you don't even really care. Like that's about all you configure. You don't set up VMs. You don't even. That's it. You just go, yeah, this is what I need you to run. You take care of it.
So it's JCL. I write some JCL code, upload to a mainframe.
I mean, isn't that kind of what the platform as a service stuff is about? Is care less. Let's not even care about VMs. Where first we were getting out of the data center. Like I don't want to have the data center on premise. I don't want to pay for the air conditioning. I don't want to figure that stuff out. So let's put it in the cloud. Yeah. But then you go one step further, which is I don't even want to care how it works. I just I'll use the Azure stuff. I want to write to an Azure table, and I don't even care what happens after that. It could be on a Linux box for all I care. Just Microsoft, make it work, or Google S3, make it work.
And that's AWS Lambda does that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Lambda is definitely like here's a little piece of code, just work. I mean, respond to this event and do something. I don't care how you do it.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. I don't know if industry is. Like I don't know if my customers or my employers are going to be like, oh yeah, I totally want to give up the data center. And my understanding is there's a tipping point to that. That like, if the 5 of us wanted to start something, that you could get really far using platform as a service and very economically, and you can get your viable product out there, but that there's a tipping point. You grow big, and let's say you grow, I'm going to pick on someone, you grow on Stack Overflow big, Twitter big, and now it would cost you, it's unsustainable. You couldn't possibly pay. Mm-hmm. So then you have to move back to your data center. Because,
Or a data center. I mean, that's how your data center.
right, you have to
Yeah.
move to a data center model because you just couldn't possibly keep growing with the PaaS model, which I think is kind of too bad. And hopefully the economics change, maybe as the pricing
Adoption.
wars continue.
Adoption comes.
Right.
I always thought it was funny that, at least this is in my experience, a lot of people talk about having on-premise stuff and end up being on-premise meant in some IBM data center. I worked a lot of companies where there was still technically a cloud that wasn't physically on site. It was in the IBM data center. So, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting all that stuff is sort of out there. One of the things I'm interested in learning, kind of a little different than what we've been talking about, but I think it kind of all relates, is Microsoft recently bought something called R. And they're rebranding it called Microsoft R, which is sort of a language to do like statistical analysis. What are you laughing at?
Microsoft R,
Yeah,
CTP.
it's just they're
1.0.
rebranding it to Microsoft R.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of
If
things.
these are Microsoft names, that's not too bad.
No, actually, it's a little better. So R was
It's not going to be R Core.
no,
I was thinking the same thing.
1.0.
it's gonna
We
be R.
can't call it R2. That would be really confusing.
It can't be R2. Anyway, so it's sort of tied into the idea of big data and doing statistical analysis, machine learning, and it's actually going to be part of. There are different versions of it, but there's like an open source version that's sort of what's been out there for a while. There's one that's going to run on Hadoop and Linux and things, but the one they're going to run on the Windows platform is actually going to be built into SQL Server 2016. I don't know. It's just something I've always kind of wanted to dive into. This whole thing about machine learning and trying to understand what it's all about and where does it fit in my world as a developer who kind of focuses a lot on the UI and middle tier. It's just something that a lot of people in my world seem to talk a lot about, this idea that as the Internet of Things kind of happens, there's going to be all this data that needs all this analytic stuff. So just trying to get a better handle on what it is, and it's this new thing that Microsoft bought, rebranded as Microsoft R Server, really a thing that I may want to use someday on a day-to-day basis.
So is it
something different?
Is it related to? You mentioned data. Is it related to big data?
Yes, it's part of.
Or-
It's a
yeah.
platform to do analytics of big data.
Yeah, and if that question didn't illustrate the fact enough, I'm really kind of clueless about big data. I mean, that's one of those things that I feel really guilty for not learning, but I don't know. I have no interest in it.
Right after big data, I think you have to say Hadoop, right?
Yes.
You just have to,
Oh, I
or something, or data lake. You have to just
Yeah,
throw out terms
Exactly.
like
Oh, I throw that term around all the time.
So-
At work, I'm just saying, oh, data lake, data lake, data lake.
Yes.
I have no idea what it means, but
So
My
everybody's
understanding,
like going,
R
what
is
is
a
he talking
language.
about?
You rate the R language to do the statistical analysis or to run statistical analysis against
Yeah.
big data things.
that.
So it could be Hadoop, it could be a data lake. Like I said, part of it's going to be integrated in SQL Server. It's just something I've always been a big fan of statistics. So it just seems like I always have this one thing, whether it's been like learning OLAP cubes or something. It's sort of data related. It's kind of always like that's on my list, and I never seem to get to it. So
So here's my Todd. Here's my question for you: is in trying to learn something like that, where do you get the data set? You know, that's kind of been my
Yeah.
kind of question is like where can I find like a valuable data set to exercise this kind of language on?
So I actually have a personal reason when you do this. I've gotten big into we'll call the daily fantasy sports world, and there's a lot of statistical things that you can do to make money. But no, I've always been big into the sports statistics and things, so that's going to be my data set. It's just fine. I don't know. We use the history of baseball as an example, something like that, and just tie it in, and then just say, all right, aggregate all the data for the last week. Who's hitting well, who's pitching well, kind of stuff.
What's tomorrow's optimal lineup?
Well, yeah, that's ultimately the
Yes.
goal.
Who should I play on Sunday?
Exactly. How can I make money tomorrow? Yeah, that's ultimately my long-term goal. Would be figuring out how to approach building something myself like that. A lot of people use Excel today, but from a more practical sense, it's just something I feel like I've got to have my hand on. That I feel like it's over the next 5 years. It's something I feel like I'm gonna have to deal with a little more for what I do as a consultant and stuff. So just like I just want to get my pulse around just understanding what is this thing. Is this something that I can easily just approach and learn,
Yeah.
or do I need to like spend a year working in this environment to really grasp it?
Yep. Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah, like
I've always
Gage.
sort of felt that I could do enough basic things, get a cube up, do some things with Excel, but if I
Yeah.
wanted to go beyond that, actually understand how to build OLAP cubes correctly, that's a different job than what I do.
Yeah. Like Gage, like if I absolutely needed to know this next week, like deliver a project, How much ramping up would I need, right? And
Yeah.
should I
It's
get a
just something
foothold
I
down?
think it's helpful to. I mean, everything else we've talked about, Angular 2 and React, these are all things that I plan on diving into too, Node and stuff. But I felt like I needed something else out there that sort of was a little more outside of the normal world I work in. And I think it's important to do that. You guys are talking about you going to Go and things. I think it's important as developers for us not to get pigeonholed into just, I'm going to learn the next version of C Sharp. You can do that, but try to find things that are outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. So, I'm curious. I want to bring up a couple things. Maybe it's kind of like word association. Has anybody thought of or mentioned that in 2016 I'm going to learn .NET Core and ASP.NET Core 1.0?
It's on my list, but I just feel like it's
That's
It's
just the
extension
next
what I already
thing you
know.
have to do?
I have an interest in doing it personally.
Okay. I was curious because we mentioned Node, we mentioned Angular,
Yeah.
we mentioned React. Those are all important web technologies. And then I guess I brought in F#. But okay, let me try another one. Universal Windows Platform.
What is that?
Right.
I'm being mostly serious.
Oh, building apps for the Windows Store so they can run on Windows 10, on your Xbox, on your
What's
HoloLens.
the Windows Store?
Okay, well that's a fair point, right? And that's
But it's just
what
you
I'm
run
saying.
up HoloLens. That is something I would like to play with. Whether I necessarily actually build an app or not, I don't know.
So
But,
my thinking there, Todd, with the HoloLens is just 3D in general. Like I haven't really done much with 3D rendering and 3D
Yeah.
architecture and stuff like that. So I kind of, I don't know if I'll necessarily put money down for a HoloLens this year, but to get my hands around some kind of
It'd be a cool tool to play
UI
with.
framework. Yeah.
It seems like Unity is a great way to go there, the Unity game engine. So that leads me back to the game development stuff, which I didn't mention. I mean, I've made this New Year's resolution that if I'm going to run a game developers group, I should probably ship a game.
At least I thought you had a game. Don't you used to have something with Signal R? Where you
Oh no,
you
you guys have all seen wonderful demos, but they don't ever turn into games, right?
Smoke and mirrors. Yeah. Are you going to write a HoloLens game?
Well,
Just
that's
go
how do you
for
get access to a HoloLens? Let's be honest. I mean, we know the price tag, right? But are any of us here going to plop down and become a HoloLens developer? Probably, unless like the podcast hit it big and we go pro with the Static Void podcast. Maybe it's a different.
3D Minecraft version of Static Void. Hey, wait a minute. We could be in Minecraft doing Static Void podcast. There you go.
All comes back to Minecraft.
It's the most popular thing on YouTube. You want to make money.
Yeah.
I'm just curious when we talk about developers, primarily web developers, using or just developers using Microsoft tools. That's what we like to talk about. What do they need to know in 2016? And the easiest way to start was what do we want to learn?
Yeah.
So have you picked something yet, Jess? Have we heard from you about what you're going to learn this year?
Oh yeah, no, I've named several things so far, but like I had previously mentioned Go, right? So my two things are Go and Dart, and I was being dead serious, right? I was being dead serious that I was interested in learning Dart, and because I had previously written it off, and I'm interested in Dart because Dart is yet another transpiler, right? It's more than that. It's a different language. It's along the lines of CoffeeScript, where it's supposed to be like you're in the web and you're writing a language that kind of looks and acts like JavaScript, but it's not JavaScript. In other words, if you take JavaScript and rename it to, CoffeeScript or to Dart, it won't compile. I know that's true for CoffeeScript. I don't even know if that's true for Dart, but Dart has all these features and syntax above and beyond JavaScript, and then you're just transpiling. And so TypeScript is kind of the same thing, right? Except it is JavaScript. It's a superset of JavaScript. And so I'm just wondering if you have a transpiler, if you have a true transpiler like Tracer or Babel or something like that just allows you to write the next generation of ECMAScript today. And then you have something like TypeScript, which allows you to write the next generation of JavaScript today plus static typing. Why would you choose today? I know why you would choose years ago before these other things existed, but why would you choose today CoffeeScript or Dart or something that is just like a completely different language, right? What is it that is so appealing about those languages that you need to develop in something that's just not JavaScript and then transpile it down to JavaScript. That's what I don't really understand, right? So these, in other words, TypeScript and the transpilers allowing you to use ECMAScript today, they allow you to they make it easier to write JavaScript, right? They make writing JavaScript a little bit more enjoyable, and I just love JavaScript, and I don't really understand why you would want to go away from that, right? So I want to see what all the fuss is about with Dart, and I saw that Dart is Google. I kind of referred to it earlier that there's Google shipped or is shipping. I don't know. I got to read up on it. The Dart VM. So in Google Chrome, they have an extension. They have a proprietary thing in Google Chrome that would actually run Dart code natively, so you wouldn't have to transpile, right? And that's so going back to what you guys were.
Plugin.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, yeah, right.
And I just inherently hate plugins. So if that's the answer, if that's the long-term answer, the reason you want to use Dart is because in the future it'll be natively supported. I don't think so. I'm not going to buy into that.
I think
So I
that
need
was the
to-
plan, though.
Yeah,
I think
that absolutely was the plan,
Right.
and I thought it was an evil plan. But the language is still around, and people are still using it. You can go and look at the Angular tutorial for Dart.
Yeah, I didn't see that there.
Yeah, and so I want to see what it is that I'm dismissing. I don't like dismissing things just off the bat, right? Because I mean, oddly enough, I'm like the biggest TypeScript fanboy. I actually dismissed TypeScript off the bat because I just didn't understand it. So I don't know. I'm mostly just interested in validating whether or not I should be dismissing Dart.
No, it makes sense to kind of, like I said, explore outside your realm.
Yeah.
Maybe you spend a few weeks when you go, oh, this isn't for me. Or maybe you look into it and go, interesting. Maybe there's certain things that Dart does that TypeScript or something doesn't do, and you could build it, right?
Yeah,
You could
right.
bring it into
Right.
that world. Or, like I said, a lot of things now you're taking advantage of command lines to do things. Maybe you'll write a Dart node plugin because it makes sense for what you're trying to solve, the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
The idea of being this, I am just this developer, I think is wrong. We should think of ourselves as technologists who then use languages and different tools to do our job, but we shouldn't necessarily be, I'm a .NET developer. You got to get rid of that mindset, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like I mentioned, the other one is Go, and I don't think it's going to be that long. I want to learn it just for that reason, Todd, right? Just to expose myself to some other way of doing something, some other syntax, and it helps you, I find that helps you appreciate and understand or even use your current languages even better, right, in a different way. Because I found that way when I got truly into JavaScript. Forget about TypeScript, but JavaScript years ago, and I really embraced the functional nature of JavaScript, and then
They're
I
all
went
one
back,
and the same now for you.
Yeah, they are. I know, they all just blur together. And then I went back to writing C#. I started doing C# very functionally, right? So I started using C#, using the static typing and everything for C#, and then passing around functions and lambdas and stuff. And I felt it was a lot kind of cleaner, more concise code, and I felt it made me a better C# developer to really truly learn JavaScript. And so I don't ever expect to write any production Go application because I just don't do that much on the server side anymore. And when I do, I'm going to be using ASP.NET Core.
Something with ASP.NET in it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just
Microsoft
interested in
Stack.
learning Go because a lot of people that I really respect have said good things about it. So I want to see what is up with it as a language. Not necessarily something I'm going to use in the long term, but just understand the language.
it'll be interesting to check up in like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
See where we're at
should.
and
See
see
what we think
how
we're
the
up to.
New Year's resolutions are going.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been kind of working on, this is a personal goal outside of technology, but I wanted to throw it out there, is this idea that I think as developers, we get too caught up in just writing code. There's a lot more to our job, and I think one of the things that, at least personally for me, is being able to better organize myself and plan things out and things. And I sort of use this as an extension to when I think about application architecture. And one of the things I wanted to throw out there, and I think it's helpful, is there's a good thing called Getting Things Done the Agile Way. It was a blog and then a book by a Microsoft guy called J.D. Meyer. And what he did is he took the idea of using Agile, the idea of breaking things down into smaller and smaller pieces, and using it to actually organize your life. And it's one of the things I've started to do over the last couple of years that I really want to embrace more. And I wanted to kind of throw it out there. What are things that outside of the tech world you kind of plan to do this year that better make you a better developer, software person, but maybe not necessarily a language or anything out there.
Well, Todd, just to jump on what you were saying about getting results the Agile way, that is something when I read that book, and I've kind of done a little bit of a hybrid approach, but I have this whole, maybe sometime I should show you in OneNote, I have this whole kind of way that I set up like my weekly and daily planning and stuff like that. That's kind of loosely based off of that, and it does help. I mean, no system's ever perfect, but
yeah. I mean, it's funny. I try to stick to the 3 thing, and usually I end up at 5. But 5 is better than 20 I used to have.
Sure.
So.
But another thing, one of the things in the last 3 weeks, and I'm committed now for 7 months outside of technology, but it kind of relates, I think, to a developer's lifestyle, is I picked up martial arts.
That's cool.
Nice.
It was something I thought all the time that I'm sitting at a desk all day, I needed something to kind of counterbalance that. And my wife had the idea to get my daughter martial arts classes, and I was like, this looks kind of cool.
Nice.
And so I've been doing specifically Krav Maga for the last 3 months, which is kind of more oriented around self-defense, but it kind of scratches that itch for something that's skill-based, so I still have to use my brain. I'm not really, I haven't been very athletic since I was like 12. And so, it gives me a chance to kind of learn something new in a very different way than I'm used to learning things. And it keeps me physically active, so it's been good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be able to exercise your brain in different ways because it opens up just a different way of thinking of problems. And I think that's a skill a lot of people struggle with, particularly as developers. We have a hammer, right? And everything looks like a nail. To being able to open yourself up to explore different things, I think, is good. It opens up your mind, and I think it ultimately makes you a better developer.
Yeah. How about you, Rishi?
So I was
What martial art are you learning?
No, I was the other thing that I was interested in learning about was doing these IoT Internet of Things.
Yeah.
I have a Raspberry Pi lying around, and with the new Windows 10 being able to run on ARM and with Node.js and stuff like that, I just wanted to play and do some different things, like see if I can hack into my own network devices, which are like 20 or 25 as of now. I have no idea why there are so many, but that's what it shows up on my Wi-Fi router's network list. So, so that's another thing that I would be interested in, like playing with, see if I can do some hacking on those devices.
Yeah, I have the same reaction. Is that I've been hearing a lot of IoT, and everybody's, that's the big hot thing, and I just don't know how to take action on it. I don't know how to do anything about it, right? And so it's just.
I haven't read the blog post, and everything looks so simple. I mean, they have run ASP.NET Server on Raspberry Pi, and it looks so simple, right? I mean, it's too simple to be worthy of doing anything.
Yeah, right. Well, we should have you on in 7 months and see where you made progress there.
I have this ASP.NET Server. I mean, ASP.NET Core 1.0 or 1.5. It doesn't work because they're reading it.
RaspberryCore.net.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
Everything must be core. The core is the core.
I think it was nice, Todd, that you brought up a lot of the talk about like personal organization. I hadn't thought about it before you mentioned it, and I just think I'm really bad at it. There's a lot of techniques that you hear people talk about, like anything from like Pomodoros or, like you said, using a personal form of Agile where you are setting goals every day and then maybe having your own personal retrospective. And I'll be honest, I don't do it. And maybe that's something to work on is hey, try a little bit of self-organization, and then at the end of the day, are you getting your goals done for that day or that hour or that morning, instead of just imagining and what the alternative is? You tell yourself you have it under control.
Yeah.
That probably means you don't. I mean, that's just being realistic.
That's human nature. And I think, too, when we talk about goals and things, and one of the reasons why I brought it up in this discussion was we all set a bunch of goals here, like, hey, we don't learn Node and Go, whatever, and Angular. How do you track that you're making progress with it, right? How do you identify you're even doing it? And I would highly suggest, Chris, you check out the J.G. Myers blog. He wrote basically a whole book through his blog that talks a lot about this. And it actually helps you even become better at Agile because you're kind of using Agile in a non-techie way. And it just, I found it helps you, you said, set goals and things, and also be able to measure it, right? Because that's ultimately the ultimate thing I think a lot of people miss when they talk about Agile. It's really about measuring, right? I set these things up. So how did I do? So then next time I can use that to build upon next time, which ultimately I think too is important when we talk about learning any new languages and things. Ultimately, we want to build skills that we can then use in our day job because that's where we're really going to harness and take advantage of it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Well,
really
that's
good.
that's where mine focuses on and is in my day job. I'm in the enterprise, right? And so I've been there a few years now, and I've gotten very frustrated with just kind of the fiefdoms and how everybody's organization is I do my thing, and I alluded to it earlier that we're looking to kind of integrate components from various teams together in a pretty unified way, right? And at the same time allow different teams to use the frameworks and stuff that are productive for them. But the biggest issue I have is that everyone, almost literally every single team, is writing the same exact code multiple times, right? And so we do have common frameworks and everything that do eliminate some of that stuff for us. But I just look around and people are missing that kind of outlet for collaboration and communication, and the passionate developers are sitting there with no outlet for that. There's no way to connect with other passionate developers unless you accidentally kind of bump into them on a project and realize that they're passionate too, right? And so what I'm kind of pushing forward, I'm trying to first of all really figure out and then kind of elaborate on is the concept of open collaboration. So like open source inside the enterprise, inside the firewall, it doesn't make any sense, right? Open source is all about the public actively contributing and doing so under their own volition, right? And just doing so for no personal gain or anything like that. When you bring that into the enterprise, I mean, people are getting paid, by the hour or salaries to directly benefit the organization, and so those motives and those drivers are just kind of completely reversed. But how do you create a community within the organization that kind of achieves those same results and allows people to be passionate, right? Gives them that outlet to collaborate with other passionate developers and really just kind of foster that community within the firewall. Mm-hmm. And so that's my goal for this year. I mean, that's what I'm actively working on right now, and that's really what's driving me right now. Is I've had conversations with a dozen passionate developers kind of around the organization, and they're all just in their own little silos, and you put them all together and they'll just grow, right? And I just want to see that.
Yeah.
That was something that I really liked at a company I worked at. They had a standing monthly meeting where basically all of the higher level technical people, architects, level, etc., would get together and just talk tech. It could be about what they were working on at the company. It could be something they were researching on their own time. And I always loved it. I mean, it made me really like working there. Was being able to just have that touch point with the people that were just as passionate about the stuff as you were.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was really exciting.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hoping that when I'm all done with this, I can kind of open it up to the public, truly open source. But I'm not holding out much hope for that.
One thing I kind of worked at something similar before, where we try to do that, having almost call it an internal user group type of thing.
Yeah.
One thing is it's fairly easy to get started. Important part is any kind of a user group, it's keeping the momentum going, building upon things and getting people to almost self-organize and do things on their own. So you're not always the guy in the middle trying to organize everything, because then it becomes your job, and then the problem is you have another job to do, and it can kind of fall apart. But I definitely think that is something the enterprise definitely could take advantage of. And I mean, we see it, right? I mean, if you think of Facebook or Twitter or anything, people are sharing ideas all the time. Inside the firewall, we need that same level of collaboration.
Yep. Yeah, well, I definitely intend to talk about it on the show later once actually something actually happens about it. But
so this is why you want to learn Go and Dart, huh?
No.
You got to collaborate and Go and Dart.
No. All right. Anybody else have anything else?
No, we're good.
No. All right. And you, listener, what is it that you're interested in learning more about this year, or that you think everybody else should be learning about? We'd love to know. Please leave a comment on the website, staticvoidpodcast.com, or send an email to comments@staticvoidpodcast.com. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss on the show, please feel free to let us know through those same channels. We want to make sure that we're talking about the things that you want to hear about. Todd, Chris, thanks for the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to
Aaron,
Aaron and
Rishi,
Rishi.
Thanks for coming on. That was really helpful.
Yeah, we loved having you on, and it was great chatting with you. And thank you, listener, for spending the time with us. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Static Void Podcast. Awesome. That's a show.
Stop recording. 1, 2, 3. So, Aaron, what was that company you were talking about that you were organized and had?
We're still live.
Yeah, we're still live, Todd.
That's all right. They're just, all you need to say is, do I know what that company is?
You know what that company is, Todd.
A little confused. So, Jess, let's go off live, please.
All right. And now the viewers don't get to see behind the scenes.
No. Thanks for joining us.
Live.